Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Focused Marketer, where we discuss anything and everything related to marketing as well as data. Today, we have a very special guest with us. His name is Eric Eden, and Eric has had over 20 plus years of experience in technology marketing for internet service and SaaS solutions. His experience includes building great marketing teams, implementing marketing technology solutions effectively, as well as driving demand in B2B marketing. He's also been very successful in increasing shareholder value with best-in-class marketing initiatives. So welcome in, Eric. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's dive right in. Since you've had over 20 plus years of experience within marketing, I just would love to hear about how do you think B2B marketing has evolved in the last 20 years?
It's been really amazing to watch over the last 20 years when there's been so much investment by venture capital and private equity firms into SaaS companies and tech companies, how the solutions have evolved. Some of the CRMs and the marketing automation systems and the other tools in the MarTech stack, all the way through to the website, content management systems, the event management platforms have all evolved so dramatically. Many of them have hundreds of features. And that's great. But it also requires marketing teams to learn how to use all these different tools. I think that there's more than 8,000 SaaS solutions out there now. So it's not uncommon for many marketing teams to have 10, 15, 20 key pieces of their marketing tech stack. And that's a lot of systems and processes you have to make it all work together very well. And so I think the implementation, the adoption, the integration of those systems, that's really where the rubber meets the road for a lot of growth marketing teams today, is getting all of these systems to work together. Because if you don't do it exactly right, you end up with a lot of silos of data and you can't get a great view in a macro level of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. That's a very fair point. I think, especially now, like you mentioned, there's been so many different SaaS platforms. It gets super hard for marketing teams to really track where they're actually getting their return on investment from. And I do want to touch into discuss the current economic conditions. How would you say that has sort of impacted your marketing strategy and budget allocation? And I think for a lot of us, we would also like to hear if there have been any creative or cost-effective tactics that have sort of worked for you as a CMO.
Yeah, a couple ideas and tips to share in this area. The first thing is that it's tough out there right now, in an environment where there's been a lot of layoffs in the tech sector. A lot of people are not looking to buy new solutions. People are not generally in buying mode. So it becomes more important than ever to do a couple key things. The first is to think about really deeply how you talk about who your company is, what products or solutions you offer, why they're different than other tools. There's a lot of overlap out there. Why you're positioned to be better than a lot of your competitors. And crucially, do you have an offer that allows people to get started in a way that they can get the expense approved internally? It's just really difficult to get any expenses approved in a lot of companies right now. So having a compelling offer, figuring out how to describe who you are, the value you offer, and your positioning is really key. I would also say another key dynamic is, what is your time to hero? That is, if it takes somebody 6 to 12 months to see the value in the solution that you're offering, that's a long time for them to go internally and promise other people on the management team that, hey, something good's coming. So the faster that you can make your customer look good internally because you're delivering a lot of value, that's really a key to unlocking more investments in marketing dollars. And I think that the final point in this area is think about marketing return on investment more than you have previously. So across channels, the return on marketing investment can be different. Some channels are more expensive, some are less expensive, some have better ROI as a result, and some, don't have as good as ROI. And so think about the balance so that your overall return on marketing investment is where you want it to be. So that may mean leaning more on efficient channels than you have in the past. And I think that that's tough because generally marketing leaders would be doing the most efficient things. But I think doing a review of that is often helpful during this tough economic times. It's interesting that the goals don't really change for growth. In fact, sometimes they increase, but often the budget decreases. And so a lot of CMOs are left saying, I'm not a magician. I've been efficient, so how can I be just magically 20% more efficient? But I think that there are ways you can always review what you've been doing and find more efficiency.
Yeah, I think you made some really great points, and especially time to hero. I think a lot of people don't consider that, especially given the economic condition that we're in right now. I think it's very important to be able for people to see the value that's going to come in a shorter span. So it's more justifiable to make that marketing spend also. But I think you mentioned about how it is really important to sort of be able to analyze what you're doing well and what sort of works and what doesn't work for your team. And that sort of drives me to asking, what role do you think data and analytics sort of play now in making more informed marketing decisions, especially with a limited budget?
The key thing to remember is that marketing expenses or marketing spend is really an investment. So marketing is an investment. And often people look at it more just as an expense. But crucially, if marketing really is an investment, then it's important to be measuring what is the return on that investment. And so SaaS companies, made popular by their backers and VC and PE funding, have come up with perhaps the most evolved way of looking at return on investment with SaaS metrics. But you have to have really good back-end processes, systems, and methodologies in place to be able to actually track everything you're doing and provide that marketing return on investment data to the others on the management team and on your board. Look, it's completely fair. I've worked for companies that have raised tens of millions of dollars from private equity and venture capital. And it's completely fair for those investors to see all the detail for return on investment in marketing. So down to the channels, the programs, the campaigns, even down to the exact keyword. As much information as they want, they're really entitled to, they're paying for it. That's my view. And it's really hard for marketing leaders to unlock more budget and show that their team is performing with their existing budget if they don't have these really good analytics processes in place. As I mentioned earlier, one of the big challenges that marketing teams have is if you have so many different systems and the data is siloed across those systems, the key thing for marketers is how do you pull all the data from all the different systems you're using and collate it and merge it together in such a way that gives you a comprehensive, accurate, and credible view of what's happening and what is return on investment is. And a lot of the debate sometimes comes in of what was driven by sales, what was driven by marketing, what was jointly driven. And how do you accurately portray that? I actually think the issue isn't that marketing leaders don't want to portray it accurately. I think the main issue in recent years is just that it's so difficult to do that with so many different systems that work differently, and you have all this siloed data. Pulling it all together without some really great tools and processes, trying to do it manually it's just mind-numbingly hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. And I think something that really stood out to me is when you said marketing is not a spend, but an investment, right? Like a lot of us, I think, fail to see that sometimes, but it's really important to like make us realize that it's more of an investment. And yes, when you do have an investment, it is important to be able to realize what the return on investment is. So having those right tools and also a right team, I would say, because any tool can't just be implemented just by itself. I think it sort of takes a village to get any implementation done accurately. So I think that makes a huge difference. Thank you for sharing that. I think next I would just want to know from you, since you're such an experienced CMO, what advice would you give to other CMOs that might be struggling to drive value, especially within this budget?
I think the key for marketing leaders today is being able to optimize their ROI across channels at a detailed level. So you can't really optimize things if you're dealing with summary information or just high level data points. You really have to be able to drill into the details. What is the ROI down to a particular channel, down to a particular campaign or program, and even in terms of online advertising, down to specific keywords. And where the battle is really won is you do less of what really isn't working and more of what is working. And that sounds pretty simple, but when people are running hundreds of campaigns a quarter, you really have to look at which ones are performing better, because everything directionally works and drives some result, but some things will drive a much better result than others. So being able to have that granular level detail and say, we're going to invest more in this channel and less in this channel, more in this program, less in this program. That's how you can turn the dials to really optimize the ROI. But if you don't have the right analytics, it's impossible to do that. It's just literally impossible, because you're just then throwing darts at a board saying what'll work better.
Yeah.
And I think the key is that for marketing leaders, if they can't do this optimization, they won't be able to justify their current marketing investment or spend. And they won't be able to unlock more marketing investment by the company. My experience has been when you are able to consistently show good return on marketing investment, the management team and the investors will almost always unlock more dollars to invest on a quarterly basis. And so coming up with what those metrics are and agreeing on what those metrics are with the management team and investors is the best thing that marketing leaders can do to justify the great performance of their team and unlock even more marketing budget.
Yeah, I think that was really good advice. And I think a lot of CMOs can definitely apply those to, like, their day to day. I did notice that you mentioned about sort of marketing teams, right? So I think an essential part of being successful in the work that you do is the team that you work with. And I'm sure in the time, in the time that you've been working within marketing in these many years, you worked with many different teams and you might have had teams of your own. So what would you say makes a successful team? And how would you, sort of recommend recruiting your team just to make sure that they're able to deliver success?
So I've been very fortunate to be able to work with a lot of great marketing teams over the years. I've also noticed that because of the importance of the analytics, the metrics I've been talking about, a lot of CMOs will always bring their data analysts to their next role because this is so critical. Without it, they can't really achieve, the results they want. They can't justify their performance. In my case, one of the things I've done is I've also worked with the same agency, Growth Natives across many companies, and they've helped me bring that consistency of doing the reporting and the analytics in such a way that is comprehensive and credible and accurate, so that the management teams have confidence that I'm not spinning them, that I'm providing them all the information about the return on investment. I think that it's very tough for marketing leaders if they can't provide credible and accurate information. Then the others on the management team, the head of sales, the CEO, the CFO, just don't really believe anything they say. And so you lose all credibility if you can't provide the right insights. So I think having the right team internally is awesome. I think getting help from external partners is really critical. Supplement in some cases, because in some cases it's just hard to hire the right people who have all the skills in today's market, and budget-wise, full-time versus having some outside help is a lot more expensive. So I think these are some of the keys of you have to have people, processes, and systems to make it work. But the art of it is really getting all three of them to work together really well.
That's a great point. And I think just being able, it's a task and it takes a lot of work just to put all three of these in line to work well parallelly. So thank you so much, Eric. I think that was really insightful. And I think a lot of us have been able to learn a lot from your experience and your expertise in this field of marketing. So thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. I appreciate it. It's great to share some of my experience. And I always like to say, it'll never be easy, but it should always be fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eric. And thank you for everyone for tuning in.